The Tantras themselves, they came as a core need to fulfill the need of the master and the need of the disciple to have a bridge between them. Tantra, as you probably intuitively know, is more famous than known. That is, people have heard of Tantra, but they know normally less about it than they have generally heard. When people meet Tantra, often they meet Tantra but not the Tantric texts. Luckily, there is a quote there in the meeting of Tantra, very rarely an entire text. It is quite unique for Tantra. I mean, it is quite different. If you come to give a lecture of Christianity, people will probably expect that you speak about the Bible and that you have at least read the Bible. But in today's Tantra world, there's a lot of not just Tantra students, but even Tantra teachers that know very little and have read very little of the actual Tantras, and perhaps have only heard about it from people who have heard about it, and maybe the third person, the grandfather, has read the Tantras. The Tantras themselves, I mean, it is not for no reason that it is like that. It is indeed more difficult to read the Tantras than to read the New Testament. It comes from a different civilization. It has a very different rhythm to it. We always read translations, and it is a little bit more delicate. It takes a little bit more skill. And what we aim to do in this lecture would be to give you a general taster. We will not dive into the depth of all this. If you are interested, we will mention a few times there's a course by one of our teachers, Adinata. We'll speak about the Shiva Sutra, 6 years, bi-weekly course, Shiva Sutra, Sutra by Sutra. That's how you study and practice the methods of a Tantric text. You're welcome to explore more if that interests you in the course of Kashmiri Shaivism. But today's meeting will be a taster. The Tantras themselves date a few thousand years back. Some people consider some of the Upanishads as part of the Tantras. For sure, in the time of Buddha, Buddha said, I leave you with Sutra and with Tantra. I leave you with two branches. There are books and books describing the difference between Sutra and Tantra, some of them from the 20th century, supervised by the Dalai Lama, and the conclusion is the Sutra of Buddhism does not include deity worship, and the Tantra does. Tantra generally, the Tantras themselves, they came as, let's say, as a core need to fulfill the need of the master and the need of the disciple to have a bridge between them. Now, if you can imagine having a very high spiritual state, a very elevated spiritual state, and then, or even repetitively, every day, you have a little bit of this state of consciousness and a lot of a very high state of consciousness, and then you need to explain it. You feel this compassion in your heart. You want others to experience such a high state of consciousness, and you need to create a map for them. But this map is an interior map. You do something inside in order to reach that high state of consciousness, which is very liberating, elevating, awakens great virtues, healing, and so forth. But the Tantras, you can say, as one of the main uses and goals of the Tantra, they are coming from divine inspirations. So the authentic Tantras, they were written in a very elevated state of consciousness. They were not written in the state of consciousness where most people experience life in their day-to-day, but written from a divine inspiration and marking somehow the way to reach from the ordinary state of consciousness up there. The process of spiritual awakening is not a walk in the park. The radical shift when we speak about very intense spiritual awakening and a very profound shift of consciousness from our ordinary, limited, mind-based, constant mental agitation, egoistic, selfish, very limited state of consciousness, always buzzing around the body. Rising from this state of consciousness to a variety of expanded states of consciousness, and Tantra means tan, tool, and tra, expansions, tools for the expansions of consciousness. This is what Tantra is about. So as we move from the limited state of consciousness, which is full of suffering, as you might have experienced in your life, into a higher, more peaceful, expanded, elevated state of consciousness, all sorts of things happen, and you're very welcome to read the biographies of saints from all traditions, saints and masters, to see the states. It's difficult and it's delicate, and every choice counts, and it's a very, very delicate path. You have there Swami Nithyananda in the pictures up there. He basically left home in the age of 15 and became a wandering monk. Met his master after more than a decade of very intense spiritual practice by himself, and receiving the initiation from his master, the great Bhagwan Nithyananda. This is somewhere in the 30s of the 20th century. His state of consciousness rose so much. He was walking next to some trees and everything became light, and he became that light. Very nice. But then the coming days and weeks, his body experienced so much pain. He was shouting uncontrollably like a wolf, like a lion, and he thought, ooh, ooh, I have gone cuckoo. So he escaped. So the people, because people saw him as a respected Swami. Imagine you go and the Pope in his speech would start barking like a dog. He thought he's losing it, but divine guidance brought him to a house of a man who greeted him very nicely, and he felt, I have to open that closet and that book. And he felt it so many times. He opened the closet, took a book, opened it, and it described exactly his inner state as one of the steps of evolution of consciousness. Is very normal. He spoke to his guru, where he sent message to his guru. The guru said, it's fine, it will pass, you're on the right way. He could have, without having a map, then withdraw his efforts. Dry himself up, numb himself up with food or with alcohol or with worldly activities, and close that sensitivity, and we would have lost, humanity would have lost a great enlightened master, and he would have lost his own liberation. So these tantras, they are essential. They are a tuning fork. Rise to a high spiritual experience, look in the text. Have a spiritual guide, a master that adapts the text to this life. But you look at the text and you look at the master. And you understand the eternal truth of the text with the interpretation to your world, to your life, through the spiritual master. It's a double, like with your email, it's a double verification process. It's very important, as we rise to higher states of consciousness, to inquire into the text. You can see the life of Gopi Krishna, for example, who didn't have a master and did not have enough grip of the text. It took him 15 years of agony through the process of awakening of Kundalini. He lost his love for his children. He thought he was dying several times, and he somehow improvised with very difficult trial and error, and was able to attain a certain spiritual level. But he would have reached much higher if he would have inquired to the text and inquired from the master. The Tantras also describe various spiritual practices, rituals, cosmology, astrology, predictions for the futures, the movement of epochs, and so forth. We will touch 4 texts and a few quotes from these texts. Kala Chakra Tantra, which is Buddhist, Tantra Loka from the tradition of Kashmir, Shiva Sutra from the same tradition of Kashmir, and Tantra Sara, again an Indian Tantra.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.